Today, for the very first time, I get to listen to the newest Frost album, Day and Age. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on my channel. I have already had a very exhausting day. The tiny little town that I'm from in Nebraska held kind of like a little bit of a festival type of thing today, and I had to work at it this morning and into the afternoon, and it was really hard work. It was very gratifying work, though. It was the type of thing that makes you feel good, makes you feel part of the community, and so those types of things are always really good, but I'm home now, and like I said, I'm pretty tired, pretty exhausted, but I wanted to do this video because I really don't want to wait anymore before I can listen to this album. I guess that's sort of one of the side effects of doing reaction videos like this on my channel is that when I get an album and I really want to and I'm looking forward to listening to it, I have to wait until it's right for me to do the reaction. And because my videos are quite a bit longer and I have to change my setup a little bit every time and whatnot, doesn't matter, but it's quite a big ordeal for me to record a video. And so sometimes I'll get an album and it'll be weeks, or even in this case, I would say it's almost 2 months since I got this album in the mail. Maybe only a month. It just seems like time has been flying by, but we all know time is a little bit meaningless anymore after the pandemic last year. But anyway, before I get too deep into anything, I just want to say, if you have not seen any of the videos on my channel before, know that basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the new Frost album and I'm going to put it in my CD player and I'm going to listen to it all the way from the front to the back for the very first time while giving you my thoughts in real time. So if that sounds cool, please stick around and watch the video. If you don't want to watch my reaction to the whole album and all that, and you just want to skip to the end of the video, usually at the end after I'm done listening to an album, I do a sort of an album review or sort of give my overall thoughts on the album. So if you just want to skip to that, that's cool. In the description of this video, there will be timestamps for all the different relevant sections of the video, including the individual tracks. So if you have a track you'd like to hear my thoughts on, you can skip right to that by looking in the description of the video. Also in the description of the video, I'm going to be leaving a link to listen along with me to this album on Spotify if you want to listen along with me. If you have your own copy, you can use that, but I will not be including any actual audio from the album in this video because I don't want to get a copyright strike and because I don't want to take anything away from the artist. As of right now, and I don't foresee in the future, none of my videos are monetized or anything like that, so there's no ads or anything like that on my videos. There never should be. Though I think in a few instances I have used little clips of music and samples and things, like the Spirit Box one, for example. I believe I used like 13 seconds of Holy Roller in that one, and that video got a copyright claim, and I believe there can be ads on that video now, and the revenue from those ads go to Spirit Box. I believe that's how that works, or to their record label at least, the owner of their music. But anyway, that's why I will leave a link in the description to listen along with me on Spotify. And I do recommend you listen along with me if that is an option for you. Like I said, if you're already familiar with the album and you just want to hear my thoughts, that's cool too. So before we dive into the album, I just want to talk a little bit about my sort of previous history with Frost. And it's kind of an interesting history because I am a very, very recent fan of Frost. The first album of theirs that I acquired was, up to this point, what is their penultimate album now, their second to most recent release, which is Falling Satellites. And I don't know how I came across Frost, probably looking for new music online, which is something I do very, very often. But I remember hearing it and being pretty excited when I first heard it because it reminded me so much of one of my favorite electronic artists of all time, BT. And if you're watching this video and you are a fan of Frost and you don't know who BT is, then you have an entire artist catalog you can go back and listen to if you want to hear something. The reason it reminded me so much of it was because BT, for those of you who are unaware, is a pioneering electronic musician who is credited with sort of bringing house music to the United States. I believe he's online, he's been referred to as like the godfather of house music. But in the early 90s, I believe he's one of the people that was sort of instrumental to bringing that sort of four-to-the-floor style electronic music to the United States in the early 90s, mid-90s. I know he was big in the sort of like electronic music scene in England and in Europe, and I fell in love with his music after that when he did a few like sort of like breakbeat albums and with a little bit more of a hip hop influence. But the cool thing about his whole discography is that it really encompasses every different style of electronic music. And BT himself is a trained musician, a Juilliard trained musician in vocal arrangements, choral singing, and vocalizing, and drumming, and also piano. So he is a fantastic musician in every possible way you can think of, and his arrangements for his songs is very complex. And he is not afraid to have songs that are 9, 10, even minutes or even longer. He does film scores and all sorts of things. And so when I first heard Falling Satellites by Frost, I thought this sounds just like BT, but a little bit more progressive rock, progressive metal almost, progressive electronic music. And I think that the lead singer for Frost, who I believe is Jem Godfrey, the sort of like lead musician and everything, though all the members of Frost I do believe sing. But I believe that his voice is very similar to BT's voice. So check that out. If you want to, if everything I've just mentioned sounds a little interesting to you, I highly recommend BT's album, These Humble Machines. I think any fan of Frost would really, really, really appreciate that album. And in my opinion, it's one of the greatest albums that's been released in the last 10 years. And in my top 12 albums of the decade that I released last year, it actually was number 3, I believe, on my list of top 12 albums of the decade. So definitely check that out if you want. But back to Frost. Much like everything I was talking about there, the sort of progressive elements and everything, when I first heard Frost, I think the first song I heard was a sample of the song Tower Block. But the beginning of Tower Block, the vocals start and they sound very sort of lo-fi, very far away. And then as the song goes on, it almost sounds like the whole thing is being performed in an elevator or some sort of a hydraulic thing. There's all sorts of like different sound effects and things. And then when the song actually kicks in, it's this very cool electronic stutter edit part. And I absolutely love that. And that being my introduction to Frost, I was like, wow, this is really crazy and very intricate once it gets more further into that song, more complicated. And then, I went through and I listened to this whole album, and it really was shocking to me how it sounds so cohesive. Like there's so many different things going on in each of the different songs, and so many different sounds are being used, but it all feels like it's one cohesive piece of art, basically. After I got this album, I was really happy with it, impressed, and I think that I found out about it the year after it came out, so I don't think that this album ended up on my top 12 albums of that year. But I kind of kept my eye out, my ear to the ground, if you will, for a new Frost album. And at the beginning of last year, I believe it was, 2020, maybe it was even the very end. No, it was the beginning of this year, the end of 2020. I found out that they had released an EP called the Others EP. And I mentioned that in my top 12 albums of the year video that I recorded at the end of last year for 2020, that I was very, very happy with it. But it was an EP, so it wasn't really, I didn't consider it an actual full album. And so, but I actually really liked that album more than anything in their catalog up to that point. And I really, that I had heard at least. At this point, I hadn't heard Experiments in Mass Sound, and also Million Town. I had not heard those two albums. I had only heard Falling Satellites. But anyway, fast forward a little bit, and I was looking online, and I found out that Frost was releasing this compilation called 13 Winters. That was a like sort of 7 or 8 CD set that included both of their first 2 albums remixed and remastered, and copies of this album as well, including the instrumental version of Falling Satellites, some live stuff, and including the Others EP on a CD. And so what I ended up doing was getting this set, the Frost set 13 Winters. Now on my channel here, I have an unboxing video where I actually go through and I unbox this because I was so excited about it. And it's really cool because I didn't really know a lot about Frost, even just at the beginning of this year. I knew I liked this album, and I knew I really enjoyed the Others EP. I mean, I like the Others EP a lot. It's one of my favorite collections of like 6 songs of all time. It's absolutely fantastic. I really, 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 really love the female vocal samples that are spread out throughout that album. I love the song structuring. I love everything about that album. I think it's the best thing Frost has done up to this point that I have heard, including any of their albums. But so I ended up getting this, releasing that video on my channel of the unboxing, which I think only at this point, like maybe 25 people have watched. So it's not a big video or anything, but you can see in the video, I was so excited. And so what I ended up doing was, after I got this and did the unboxing video, I sat here and I read this whole book about Frost and everything about the band. There's like a history of the band and stuff in here. And then what I did was I went through and I listened to all of these discs. There's 4 discs in the front, and there is 4 discs in the back, one of which actually the other's EP I don't have in here right now because I was listening to it recently to sort of get ready for this. So I meant to put it back in there, but I did not. But I went through and I listened to all 8 discs of this collection. And what I did was I basically fell in love with Frost in a way that now I think of them just as highly as any band that I have been a fan of for 20 years or more. I think that they're an incredible band. I think their story is incredible. And, there's certain things about them that I like a lot. One of the things that I like the most about them is that Jem Godfrey, the sort of mastermind of the band, he has gone on record as saying that he does not like performing live. The Frost was never meant to be that kind of a band. And so that, without going too deep into it, I am not the greatest fan of live music. And I think that when a band goes into a studio and they limit themselves while they're making their record to what they can reproduce live on stage, I think that is a great hindrance to that band and to music in general. I think a lot of people leave a lot of creativity in the studio because it would require going further than what they could produce live. And that really is disappointing to me. And so that's just one of the small things that I learned about Frost that made me absolutely love them. Then I went on YouTube and I saw a couple videos of them performing in the studio, and it's absolutely insane. I know I just said I don't care about live music very much, but I can't deny the fact that it was incredible for me to sit there and watch them play these long 10-minute songs, doing these solos like flawlessly, doing the vocals and the vocal harmonies incredibly well, like just insane musicianship. And that's where the sort of progressive rock side comes into all of this. So at the very end of this book in here, it says that as of the writing of this, they were working on new material for both their 5th and 6th album. And so in my brain, I was like, okay, hopefully in the next few years, we get another album. And then maybe another couple years after that, we'll get another album. So by 2025, we might have 2 more Frost albums. Well, lo and behold, a couple of weeks ago, I was looking online and I typed in Frost to just see if they had released a new single or anything. And this album had been out for since 2 months after I recorded the unboxing to this, which I recorded the unboxing and released it on my channel to this collection in March of this year. And in May of this year, this album was released. And I just happened to totally go under my radar. I don't follow them on any social media or anything like that. I don't have Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. I really only use Facebook to talk to friends and family and coworkers and things. And so I had no clue that this album was out. Not a clue. And so, of course, I went and I purchased it right away. Very excited to listen to it. And here we are now, weeks later. I can't wait anymore, and I'm very, very excited to listen to it. So if we're talking about what I kind of expect with this new album, I think what we have to mention is that I don't like everything that Frost has ever done. There's a few songs that I think are a little bit, I don't want to say hoity-toity, but they're a little bit too much for me. I like it when they keep it simple. That was one of the things that was sort of shocking to me when I first heard Milliontown, the album, for the first time, not the whole just the Milliontown, the song, which I do think Milliontown, the song, is really cool and I enjoy it, but I don't really think it doesn't necessarily need to be as long as it was, and it is not my favorite song on that album at all. There's several other ones that I like a lot. But, when I found out that Jim Godfrey used to be sort of like a pop music producer and that he had worked for a lot of really good sounding pop albums, it makes sense when you think about someone like that who's an incredibly talented musician, but also a very, very, very good producer and recording engineer and mixing engineer and editing engineer and all of that stuff, which all of those things are very different, different areas of the music industry and of the audio industry. But for one person to be so good and so well versed in all of those different areas, it's very special when you have that person making music. And so that's why I feel like Frost is a really special and unique band in that regard. I myself am the absolute lowest tier of musician that you could possibly be. So like a lot of the technical crazy wizardry and the music theory of everything that's going on with Frost's music just goes totally over my head. But what I really do appreciate is the sounds that they use to put together to create their songs. I appreciate the structuring of their songs. I talk about that a lot in a lot of my videos. Especially this year, I feel like for some reason artists have decided that structuring a song with any sort of a familiarity to the structuring, any familiar structure, is just a big no-no. And that is something that really disappoints me. I like to kind of have a bit of a guess as to where we're going when I'm listening to a song for the first time, following that song down its path. I don't mind it when a song's path, if you will, if you'll follow me on my analogy here. If a song's path is a little twisty and windy, I think that that's really nice. But I don't necessarily like it when something takes a complete right turn and then all of a sudden the song ends or something like that. That's not really my style. I vastly prefer the classical ABA style of song structure. And so how that translates into my love of Frost is that even though they are a progressive metal band, progressive rock band, I believe they were on Wikipedia, they were called like a neo-progressive rock band of some kind. I don't know what that means exactly, but even though they have all these progressive elements to them and their arrangements can be incredibly intricate and they can be very filled with all sorts of music theory and polyrhythms and all sorts of interesting, complicated things, they always come back to parts that you know, and they do it in such a way that it sounds like something that you can follow along with. And I really appreciate that, being a person that's not a very intellectual music person. So I think that's one important thing that I wanted to mention right off the bat. Like, I really enjoy the fact that their music is accessible to not only crazy music theory, music purist people, but also to the average person, I think. And that was one of the things that I loved the most about the Others EP. Almost all of the songs on that EP were structured, even the longer ones, were structured such that it came back to a chorus. I really, really, really enjoyed that EP a lot. And knowing that that was the most recent music that they released before this album came out gives me a lot of hope. So now I do know that some of the songs on that EP, if not all of them, were things that were sort of from the Falling Satellites recording sessions and things, I believe. It was sort of pieced together from different things that they had had in the past. So maybe that was sort of that Others EP was approached a little bit differently than something that they sat down and said, we're going to do a whole new album from scratch, but we'll see when we get to the album, which we will do very shortly. So I think what I'm going to do, how could I display this? So let's get to Day and Age. As I said, I did buy this quite a while ago. I have taken the book out. I have looked through the book. I really enjoy all of the artwork that this package comes with. It reminds me a little bit of some Depeche Mode style sort of artwork, which I wouldn't necessarily say is a good thing. I think of all the incredible, amazing bands from throughout history, Depeche Mode is probably the one that has the absolute worst artwork, which I would love to debate someone on that sometime. But I like the artwork that's in here a lot. Like I said, it does remind me of Depeche Mode a little bit. I don't know if we'll get any sort of Depeche Mode sounds on the album, though I definitely, wouldn't be surprised. I don't really know what to expect with this. In the liner notes of the album, all it mentions is that Jim Godfrey plays keyboards, railboard, which I'm not sure what that is exactly, and vocal. Nathan King plays bass, keyboard, and vocal, and John Mitchell plays guitar, bass, and vocal. And I do know that after Falling Satellites, I believe, their regular drummer left the band, and so now they have three different drummers on the different songs on the album. We have Pat Mastelotto, Kaz Rodriguez, and Darby Todd, all playing drums on the album. And then the only other person that is credited on the album is the actor Jason Isaacs, who famously played Draco Malfoy on the Harry Potter movies, and he's also the antagonist in one of my favorite movies, a really underrated movie in my opinion, of recent years, The Cure for Wellness. I love that movie. I don't think that it's a perfect, flawless movie whatsoever, but I do think that it's one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen, and I just love the atmosphere and the sort of just the atmosphere of that movie. But Jason Isaacs does some spoken word on one of the tracks on here, so I'll be listening for that. So with that in mind, I do have the copy of this album that has 2 CDs in it. The second CD is the first CD instrumentally. We will not be listening to that at all. I don't see any reason for us to do that. I will listen to the instrumental version probably at some point in the future to just sort of get a different feel for the songs. But for now, I want to experience the songs with vocals the way they were meant to be experienced. And knowing that the whole second disc is instrumental and that every track is repeated on the second disc as an instrumental song tells me that there should not be any instrumental songs on the first disc. So every one of these songs should, I believe, have lyrics and vocals in it. I'm assuming that some of the songs will be pretty long. I do not actually have the length of the songs listed anywhere in the ding. I've never seen the length of the songs. For all I know, one of the songs could be 20 minutes long. I do expect there to be some longer songs, though, on this album, because it's a Frost album. So, of course, there should be at least 1 or 2. However, I will say of all the Frost catalog that I've heard before, which I believe is everything that they've released at this point because I have this collection here, I do think that their shorter, more sort of pop-length songs are the ones that I enjoy the most. But I think that's just because what they are doing, what the sounds that they're exploring on those shorter songs are ones that appeal a little bit more to me, because I think that's where they get a little bit more electronic and a little bit less progressive. So I'll be anxious to see if that holds true with this. So I am going to be hitting play and starting the album. I'm not going to read all the lyrics as I go, but I will maybe glance at the lyrics a little bit. But I will keep the book around in case I want to reference something. But I will be hitting play, and listening right now. I hit play, but hold on a second. Before you start yours playing, I'll let you know when the song starts. Takes a second for my CD. Right here.
And welcome to the rest of your life.
Okay.
Before we begin
Spoken word by a child.
Please sit back, relax, and remember. Enjoy yourselves. You scum.
Oh my gosh. Sit back and remember. Enjoy yourselves and remember. Enjoy yourselves or something. You scum. I love it. All right, here we go. This is going to be great. I love that they start the album by telling you to sit back and relax and actually listen. Don't just listen to this album on your phone while you're walking around. Oh boy. Okay. So some palm muted guitar. All right. The drums sound great. So far, the bass sounds like it's just sort of like it doesn't sound like real bass guitar. And for all I know, there won't be any real bass guitar. It sort of sounds like drony low notes. Okay, lots of sort of flanging going on the vocal there. The drums have a lot of weight to them. They carry a lot of weight, and I really enjoy that so far. I will also say it sounds like the drums are mixed sort of mono with a little bit of like a delay almost on the sides. Or the hi-hat at least is maybe off to a little bit to the right. That kick has a lot of low to it. But there's also sort of like a droniness happening in the low frequencies, and I think that that's the bass. And I think it's just a synth bass. Oh, there might be some actual bass in there. But the bass sounds very drony. Not a lot of high definition, like higher definition to it. But I don't think that that's necessarily necessary. You know, the guitars are, everything's kind of panned all over the place. We got some background vocals, but most of it's focused in the middle for sure. Ooh. Cool. Very nice build there. That reminds me of something. I want to say almost maybe like Phil Collins a little bit. But Phil Collins uses a lot of like flanging and effects on his vocals like that. Frequency sweeps and things like that. Very drony low frequencies. That's one of the things I'm getting from this. I should say also, like, I have not heard a single second of this album. Not a second. In any sort of promo or YouTube video or anything. I had no clue this album existed until just a couple weeks ago. Awesome. Returning to the chorus for a third time. I love it. I'm going to push the button on my CD player that allows me to see how long we have. Oh my goodness. 7 minutes left of this song? 48 minutes left on the album as a whole. Oh boy, I love it. How could we have 7 minutes left of this song? And we're going to have a long instrumental section here. But that just gets me excited. Like, at this point, we've already sort of completed the song, if you will, in sort of the ABA structure. So now what are we going to do? Those sort of like harmonic guitar sounds, very cool. Pitch shift vocal there. Drum build. Okay. Got a lot of synth pads and a few sounds that are kind of doing this. Nice dissonant string sound there. Love the drums. They sound fantastic. And I'm definitely hearing some real bass in there now. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, that's interesting. Is that like a keyboard patch or even a dissonant sort of chord on the guitar? See, now we have a little bit more of a dreamy feeling or dreamy quality to it because before everything was choppy and then it just, now it's everything is allowed to sort of hold through as full long notes. And even the drums are crashing and things. Okay. Back to the hi-hat pattern. Nice. Love those notes. Almost like a horror sound. Horror film almost. Having some dissonant notes thrown in there, creating a feeling of sort of unease or building some tension. But also it feels very relaxed. I'm gonna change my mind. We have 5 minutes left of this song. I'm gonna turn that off. I don't want to know how long each of these songs is. I think it would be better for me to be surprised. Even though I like to know where the road is heading with the song, like I mentioned earlier with my analogy there, it's kind of fun to not see the destination. Very dreamy. That sounds like it could be a keyboard of some kind rather than a guitar. Ooh. Ooh, okay. Crunchy guitar, give it to me. Yes, yes, please, be heavy. Awesome string sounds there. Yeah! Yeah, I did not expect this. Love it. Yeah. I don't really know what this has to do with the first 5 minutes of the song, but it's cool. Are there more lyrics listed in the book for this song? I don't think so, right? Yeah. Oh my. Oh, yes. Oh, this is eerie, and I love it. The children's choir or the child singing. Oh, man. I kind of want like a shredding guitar solo over this riff. I mean, it's the simplest thing in the world, and I love it, though. Not everything needs to be so complex and technical to be enjoyable. This is creating a mood, creating an atmosphere. All right, now we're back to the beginning of the song. Or back to the feeling of the beginning of the song, at least. I love that you really don't know what you can expect. You know, the next song could be just only acoustic guitar and singing. And I love bands that are so versatile that they can be unpredictable, if that makes sense. But I've already said that I enjoy predictability in music, so it's kind of an interesting, different sort of, I just love it. Okay, we got some more vocals here. One thing I will say, if this is the first time you've seen a video on my channel, you probably might not know this about me, but if you have seen any of the other videos on my channel, you probably know. I cannot stand it. Cannot stand it when a song fades out. So I really hope that none of the songs on this album fade out. However, I'm going to sort of assume... Back to the chorus, yes! Oh, this is how you do it. This is how you write a 10-plus minute song. I love it. Oh, big chords here. Okay, I love that sound. It reminds me of something Linkin Park did once, I think. Linkin Park is the thing in my head. I think it's just sort of a palm muted almost, well, not palm mute, but some sort of like a harmonic played on a guitar, but it has a very particular way it sounds. That's how that whole thing started. I love it. Now that bass is really in there. Yes. The bass guitar. Ooh, a bit of a warble in there on some stuff. We're plus 11 minutes, 15 seconds now. How long I said or heard earlier, I didn't see the total length of the song, just that we had, it's fading out. I'm a little bit more okay with it because they've already finished the song at this point, but see, there's a keyboard solo. Why fade out during a cool, awesome, pretty perfectly good keyboard solo? That's disappointing that it fades out, but the song was 11 minutes long before that, so okay. All right. Oh, boy. What is that? Sounds like some sort of a creature. I love that. I have no clue what created that sound. It sounds like something breathing into a tube or something almost. Like a plastic tube. Oh boy. Yes. Love the sound. The core of their sound is so thick, but it doesn't rely on heavy, chunky guitars or anything to be thick or heavy feeling. Yes. Wow. I love it. How do you put these things together? How do you come up with these specific sounds to go with that weird, unique sound? And then back to the chorus. Okay. Still, there's elements of the chorus riff still in there, but all the heaviness is gone now. We have more floating sort of sound. Definitely can hear the bass on this. Oh, whoa. I'm definitely hearing a lot of compression on both of these songs. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing, though. What is it's doing is it's making it sound like the sound is this sort of compact, intense sound. But then what they do right is that they allow the song to bloom and blossom in other parts. Album was mastered by Peter Vant Wright, I believe. I'm sorry if that's not right, if that's not pronounced correctly. At Fine Tune. I don't know where that was in. Oh, love that synth sound. I will definitely say that the mix doesn't sound as wide as I feel like it could. And I'm going to say I think that that's probably a conscious decision. There are definitely cymbal hits on the far outsides, but there's not a lot of things that were double tracked and then spread wide that I can hear. You know, that core, chunky mid-range, thick, low bottom end is the predominant thing you're hearing during the heavier parts. Okay. This song almost sounds like fretless guitar might have been used on it, fretless bass. Okay, this song feels like it's sort of ramping down. Okay. Interesting. Oh boy. Piano. Fantastic sounding piano. Waiting for the lie. Okay, we have a different person singing, I believe. One of the other three members of the band. This is definitely the same voice that's saying Lights Out on Satellites. It's a cool piano riff, if you will. Piano part. Okay. Overdubbed vocal there, spread wide, but very low passed. A little bit woofy almost. Might hear some real strings in there. What sounds like some strings or something building. Yeah, it's definitely some string sounds in there. Might be string samples. Interesting. Very cool low synth, low string sounds. Could be real strings. I don't know. There are no string players listed in the liner notes, but who knows? Could all be synthetic strings. Okay. The piano definitely has a low pass EQ on it because there's not a lot of high end in it, but that's nice because it allows the high end to be used for the vocals. That's where you get more breathiness from the vocals. But what happens is you lose a little bit of the definition of the piano. Oh, what is that? That's weird. It's almost like a dubstep, like a low bowed note on the bass or something, or a double bass, upright bass. Drums sound fantastic, just like they have on all three songs. Wow. Very complicated drum part going on here, which is nice sort of juxtaposition to the vocals, which seem very simple. They're getting a little bit more intense. Piano is complex the whole time. Yeah, that low frequency is really building along with the sort of string sample sound, whatever. It kind of just sounds like a like a woofiness of sound. Like only the low frequencies are being reverbed. And I don't know if I care for that. It's a little too much. Okay, 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes was that track.
Wake up.
Wake up. Oh boy, that sounds fantastic, the voice. It doesn't sound like Jason Isaacs, really. What is this song gonna be? I really, in general, I don't care for it when people talk during a song, but we'll see. Invisible? Wow, that combo of the guitar, the bass bass guitar and the kick and the drum beat. Very cool. It's very interesting. This is sort of something that the Gorillaz would do, that Damon Albarn would do. Have a story being told during a song, while there was a song playing. I wonder if there will be any regular lyrics or any vocals on this song. It looks like there might be. Oh, you can really hear the air there in the room where that was recorded. If that's not real and that air's... Oh, I love that. And it's subtle too, and it's going with the drum hits. Ooh. It's weird. It's a very chaotic beat. It feels chaotic. It feels manic, but it doesn't. Okay. Oh, that is just like a million takes. That is an incredible effect on the voice. I'm going to assume that it was one take. It's fantastic what's happening. I really don't know how they would have done that. You know, have the stereo delay, but effects on one side against the other with a little bit of a slapback delay on one side, maybe. Very interesting. Watching. The story is very cool. You know, I think you could take it to mean that, you know, a person who just stands still and lets the world pass them by could be an analogy for those of us listening who don't, you know, to actively take part, or could be someone who was smarter than everybody else because they just sat and chose to watch the world go by rather than try to run along with it, or something like that. But it's also cool just if you think of it from the sense of this sort of a grand epic story being told in song. It sounded at first to me like it was just an absurd number of overdubs, just someone yelling the vocals the whole time. Ooh, love the delay on the drums there. Wow. Wow! Wow. Oh, the drums sound fantastic here. Wow. Wow. Okay, track 5. Jeez. There's only 8 tracks, so we're already almost... Okay, so this is Island Life. This one was... I was really curious. What is this going to sound like? Is there going to be any sort of an island feel to this? Okay, a bit of like a warble on the vocal. Pretty stereotypical for Frost. Okay, so to me, it's sounding pretty much similar sonically to what we've heard so far. I was expecting like slide guitar, Hawaiian style island something. Okay, I would say this definitely feels like a song that could fit very comfortably onto Falling Satellites. Reminds me of... Oh, really cool transition there. It reminds me... It feels a lot more like we're a band playing on this one. Which is interesting. So far, we haven't had that sort of like more simple pop song almost. So I'm anxious to see if we'll get that. We probably won't. And that's okay. Just strummed guitar, electric guitar. Okay, here comes some cool synths. A little synth solo, maybe. Oh, they got some, like, dissonant notes in there. Or they're pitch shifted, or not pitch shifted. The pitch knob is being messed with, I feel, a little bit. Very cool. Little triangle. Electronic triangle in there. That's great. Someone I heard someone yelling, "Woo!" It almost sounds like there's some background female backing vocals in there. But I don't think so. I think it's just their vocals, possibly even their male vocals pitch shifted. Interesting. No crash symbol there, just on the ride from one. That's interesting. I will say, in my entire music catalog, which consists of well over 1,000 CDs, 1,000 albums, very little of it is progressive rock, progressive metal. So the fact that I like this as much as I do really, I think, speaks to the fact that it is accessible. Okay, that song, if we're done here, only about 4 minutes long. Cool, though. I liked it. Probably the most different song on the album so far. Man. We only have 3 songs left, I think, right? This is Skywards. Ooh, I love that. Oh, that sort of like staccato-iness. It sounds like someone rubbing something, playing a guitar, but like very softly and muted almost. So you're not playing the note. There's a very tactile feel to that sound. Okay. Ooh, I love that note there. Yeah, that's a nice low note there. Sorry if my table is creaky this whole time. I don't know if you'll be able to hear that in the mic or not. That was cool, almost like a reverse sort of a sound of some kind. I like this little pre-chorus part here. For some reason, I really like that chord progression there. Okay, what do we got for a bridge here? Man, that kick has such weight to it. It's very, 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 very good sounding. Nice build there. And just continuing along. I will say so far, no like crazy, intricate soloing at all. Really whatsoever. And that's okay. I wouldn't mind a little soloing every now and then, but, you know, it's not what they're going for here. That's cool. And that reverb, that sort of thickness to the kick there, really awesome. I think it's just some toms as well. Awesome. It's always so special when a band that can do all these crazy things decides to just write a good song and make it simple. And I'm not saying I think it's better. I'm just saying it's a special thing, you know? When someone has all this crazy talent and they choose to just be simple and tasty with it, it feels just awesome to me. Oh gosh, track 7. All right. This is Kill the Orchestra. Okay. This song's got quite a bit of lyrics to it. It's got like almost like a double page of lyrics. So I don't know if this is a longer one. I hope so. We only have this. This is the penultimate song. And I don't know what the last song's going to be. If it's going to be some sort of a ballad type thing, I don't know. We haven't really had a full ballad, unless this is the ballad here. This vocal here is mixed in such a way that it sounds a little bit roomy. Like there's a room mic in there as well. Sounds a little more mid-rangey than it would need to, but I think that that's for a reason. For a purpose. Awesome chord there. Yeah, I definitely am hearing some room sound in there. That could be done with some sort of a delayed effect with a specific set of frequencies on it, scooped out, or scooped and everything else scooped out. Okay, here comes the band. Yeah, and the kick and the drums are just sound so massive here. There's a lot of sub frequencies. Whoa. That was weird. There was like a slide or like a warble in there, a pitch. I will say the vocals sound a little weird on this song. Like unnecessary effects on it. Almost like it was recorded poorly, but I don't think that that's the case. I wonder if that sounds like acoustic guitar, and it could be acoustic guitar. Could also be a patch played on a keyboard. Sounds great, though. Wow. It's a cool riff. There's a lot of like unnecessary buildup of mid-range frequencies on the widely spread wide, and I don't really know why that's there. And it's kind of been there the whole album, and I don't know. That's very weird. I don't think that would be a mastering thing, but it could be. I don't know if it's some sort of an effect that was put on the bass and stuff, but I've kind of mentioned this whole album that there was like a woofiness that I'm hearing. A little disappointing. Just because everything else sounds so perfect, you know? I almost am tempted to believe that because I know how great these guys are and everything else sounds so good, that this weird, like, it's like there was like a bass or sub-frequency or something that they felt the need to do the stereo delay on, you know? As long as you can delay something within, as long as the delay is within the fusion zone and you pan it one left, one right, you can have a wide sounding sound. But the thing is, I just don't think that was necessary. But still, the drums sound fantastic. We got the kids coming back in here. And I don't know if that was Jason Isaacs going, relax. Low pitch shifting. Song's got a bit more of a hopeful feel to it now. I'm a little surprised that the stereo mix hasn't been utilized a bit more. Like everything, it feels like all the sounds to me are within this sort of like this sort of like a narrow range like this, and then the only things that are outside that on the extreme left and extreme right are this just like low booming sub frequency, like this low frequency that I feel is just causing a muddiness kind of to be there, and I personally don't think that needs to be there. Ooh, a little solo here. We're at 8.5 minutes. We're almost on the last track, Repeat to Fade. Which I hope Repeat to Fade doesn't fade, but it's called Repeat to Fade, so... Oh boy, track 8, here we go. Repeat to Fade. Love that transition there. Oh, got a little operatic vocal sample, something. Maybe a Japanese vocal, it sounds like. I love how that song faded into this one. Or like transitioned into it, not faded. If this song's literally about just repeating repetitious stuff until fading out, then the song's definitely going to fade out, right? This sounds fantastic. Love it. Vocals with like some sort of like a phaser flanger type thing on them. I love the kick and snare. I love it. The whole album, I have loved the kick and the snare. The snare is being a little bit more subdued in this song, and that's cool. Gosh, those massive, like, drones in the background. That low frequency is so wide, it's just interesting. Oh. See, when all that stuff goes away, it just sounds so much better to me. Oh, cool, like, vocoder thing in there. Love it. Those massive droney low frequencies are in there. All right, what do we get? What do we get to close out the album here? Okay, lo-fi type of sounding thing. Love the warbly piano. That's not a lot hard, easy line to sing, I don't think. The kid. Never free. All right, what's going to happen here? Massive. I'm so anxious to know if this is going to fade out. But it's almost like I have to be okay with a song that is fading out if it's about fading out. I love the enjoy yourself, like the callback to that beginning of the album with that kid speaking. Sit back, relax, and enjoy yourself. The picture of them is kind of interesting. Makes them look like a really mean evil dudes. Okay. Okay, now it just sounds like TV static or radio static. Can you hear me? I think that's what it said. All right. 53 minutes, 14 seconds long. Interesting. Okay. All right. Gather my thoughts. That was and still remains to be Day and Age by Frost. I think that it's not, oh man, that's tough. What I was going to say was it's not exactly what I wanted from the album, but the thing is, because their catalog has been so diverse thus far, I don't know if it's not exactly what I wanted. It was big, heavy rock drums the whole time with a really, really cool groove. I think the thing that disappointed me the most about that is all those like low droning frequencies that were spread so wide and that seemed to just be unnecessarily fighting with other frequencies. I don't necessarily think that that was the right call if that's what was done intentionally. There were a lot of effects on sounds that it sounded like you take a source, an audio source, a single individual mono track, or maybe a stereo track, but you take a single track and then you add these effects on it to make it sound like there's many, many, many layers to this one source sound. And that is a pretty common sound effect, if you will. There's lots of different ways you can go about doing that with delays and, you know, delaying something. And then when you have the delayed track, putting effects on that are completely different than the effects on the source track can make things feel a little different. And then if you use your delays correctly, it can make things sound different when they're spread wide. There's different things you can do to have different sort of effects like that. And there was very few like dry vocals throughout the whole album, which I think is pretty standard for a lot of Frost's previous releases. I would say overall the album felt a little bit less playful, and I know that might be weird to say, but the reason I loved the Others EP was because, like I said at the beginning of this album, like you truly did not really know what to expect from it. You know, there's a crazy song about like going on this voyage and like on the sea and stuff. This very epic song with like these strings and everything, and then my favorite song on the album, which is I think called "Eat." Is that what it's called? Yeah, Eat, and then the song after it, Drown, which both have like the core of the song is sort of sampled female vocals, but the Eat song, which is I believe, unless I'm misinterpreting it, the Eat song is about being a fly. Or some sort of a bug, and it's awesome. It's such a cool song, and it builds. There's rock parts. The using the sample of the human voice to sort of create the song was very cool and unique, and I really enjoyed that a lot. And then keeping this sort of female voice, but using it in a different way, sampled into the song after that, Drown. Then the rest of the songs on the Others EP all have their own individual, unique flavors to them. Whereas I don't necessarily feel like this album, Day and Age, each song felt like it belonged in this package. And that, I think, to me, the constant callbacks to that, really the very first thing we heard with the child doing the sort of sit back, relax, and enjoy.
You scum.
And then I forget what the word was he said, but like you dolt, or you whatever, you idiot, or something.
You scum.
Some negative thing.
Scum.
That sort of sets up the mood that it's like, okay, sit back and relax, but we're going to give you a little jab in there. You know, we're going to remind you that you're part of humanity and humanity sucks. And then to have all the songs be these sort of bigger, longer things, I liked that. A lot of the songs had choruses, went back to the choruses. I think that was interesting. I think the song that didn't land for me as well. That penultimate song was very interesting and cool. it's hard for me to even think back on what happened in the songs. I think that The Boy Who Stood Still was interesting. I think if I'm remembering correctly, that was the one that had the sort of interesting rhythm part, and then they got heavier, unless I'm thinking of Terrestrial. But I guess that's kind of my point. And I know I've only listened to the album once thus far, just right here with you. So the more I listen to this album, the more I'll become familiar with it. And so I guess that's kind of one of the downfalls of doing my reaction like this and then talking about the album afterwards. But right now, my initial impression is that I really can't separate the songs into the different sections. Now, they have different chorus. They have their own choruses. They have their own, segments within their songs, their own structuring within each individual song. And I do think for the most part, each song felt like its own song because it did have its own ending. But I think the last 3 tracks, or maybe 3 of the last 4 tracks, all sort of like bled over into the next track, which is very cool. And that is something that Frost has done on their previous albums. But what they would do is, like with Falling Satellites, they would have separate tracks. But like Sunlight, for example, was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, basically like movements of one song. And each of those movements kind of bled into the next one, but they had its own track on the album, and so it felt like its own song within a larger whole, sort of like classical music would. And to me, that's kind of how this whole album felt, since they were kind of constantly coming back to that, like, the relax, enjoy yourself.
Enjoy yourself.
I think those were 2 phrases that were mentioned a bunch. And then the you, whatever the word is, I can't remember what he used to like insult us at the very beginning, the child. And then also 2 other times throughout the album having the sort of child vocal come back. And then in the last song, I believe, having the sort of spoken word come back, though I don't know if it was actually like a sample of Jason Isaacs saying something or just someone else speaking and then having like the pitch shift on the vocals and whatnot. But it was a very interesting way to do it. And I think what it was doing was saying, hey, this is sort of a concept album. This is meant to be thought of as one continuous piece rather than 8 individual songs, regardless of how long the songs are. I will say I think the first song felt a little bit different in that it was really the only song that had like 5 to 6 minutes of just, let's just do music with no singing. That song, the first track was basically a regular song for 5 minutes long, structured regularly, with regular length segments. And then after the final chorus ended, it then went into like 4 or 5 minutes, really, or maybe even 6 minutes of instrumental part, kind of feeling like the beginning part of the song, but then changing a little with the heavy guitars coming in and the cool riff and everything, and then kind of coming back around, circling back around to it, and then actually ending on the chorus again, and then having that fade out after the chorus was done that 4th time. I liked that. I thought that was really nice. That'll probably be one of my favorite songs to listen to. I just, the thing that bums me out the most is that sort of like muddiness that I kind of heard. And I don't want to say muddy because when I'm talking about like muddiness, when I'm talking about the mix of a song, that's usually sort of like a bubbling up or a mass concentration of mid-range frequencies that is not good. And that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is sort of this blooming low frequency that sounded almost like something had like a crazy ton of reverb on it, but the reverb was just crazy low frequency reverb, like from 100 hertz down. Just some source like a guitar strumming or something with reverb that was just 100 hertz down reverb. That was this enormous blooming thing that was maybe then sidechain compressed with other things that were happening, so it felt like it kind of warbled a little bit, like there was like some movement in it, and it just felt unnecessarily massive, and it was distracting almost to the mix of overall. And I kind of felt that way during moments from track 1 all the way through. overall, I would say that I was happy with the way the album, sounded. I don't think, as far as I know, that there were any swear words on it, which was really nice. None of the songs were under 3 minutes long, which has been a trend this year, I've noticed on a lot of albums. I mentioned in my last video that I was looking, Atreyu, the metal band Atreyu, had a new album come out this year, and almost every single song was under 3 minutes. A lot of them are almost every single song was, under 3 minutes, and a lot of them are like closer to 2.5 minutes, and none of them are like feel like a complete song at all. They all just feel like they're a third too short. And that's kind of a bummer to me. I really, really, really dislike the feeling of listening to a song that I think sounds really cool, but not feeling left satisfied with it. And I understand that as a musician writing a song, you can play around with what's happening structurally so that you're intentionally leaving someone unsatisfied or not necessarily dissatisfied, but unsatisfied, wanting more. I get that. I understand that feeling. But for me personally, I don't like that. And I can appreciate it when it's done correctly. But I think a lot of the times, especially in recent times, the last 2 or 3 years or so, artists just seem like they are okay coming up with like 2 parts to a song and then just ending it. Whereas to me, I think that I really enjoy it when a song has a verse part and a chorus part, whatever that happens to be, and then you play around with the verse and the chorus for a while, and you sort of live in that space, and then you have a sort of a separate but maybe connected part, which is like a bridge, and then that can be enjoyable, that could be the best part of the song, but I feel like always coming back to where you have been living thus far in the song, coming back to something that's familiar to end it, really gives you that satisfied feeling that ends in a resolve, and I really don't like it when songs don't do that. And I say all that with the intention of saying this album didn't do that at all. None of these songs really felt like that at all. I do feel like the one song that faded out, that first song that faded out when like a keyboard thing was coming in that sounded kind of cool, was disappointing to me. But that song, like I said, was over 11.5 minutes already at that point, I think. So I will be a little bit more forgiving because they did go through and finish the song before they did the fade out. And that was really the only song that did fade out. The fade out song didn't fade out. It faded out kind of while a frequency came in that was just living there, and then they did the "Can you hear me" thing. So knowing that I read in here that they were working on material for a 4th and 5th album tells me that possibly their next album, whenever that happens to come out, was at least maybe initially done at the same time and meant to connect to it somehow. So it'd be really cool if maybe the next album started with that sort of a sort of staticky sound, sort of to continue the thought. However, if they wanted to do something totally different, maybe this album is the way that it is because the other songs that they were writing at the same time were what I was more looking for, which is sort of separate individual songs that are within themselves a complete story, but aren't necessarily connected sonically or like lyrically or anything. Maybe that's what the next album will be, and they decided to do a whole album like this and a whole album like that. Who knows? It's all conjecture at this point, but I'm going to end the video there and say I don't know for sure if this album's going to make it on my top 12 albums of the year list for this year or not. I'll have to listen to it a lot more and kind of weigh it against the other albums that have come out this year. But if you want to know if it ends up on my list, please stay tuned to my channel at the end of the year for that, maybe the very beginning of 2022 for that video. But until then, I have a bunch of other videos coming up on my channel here, other albums I'm excited to listen to and react to for you guys. So look forward to that, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.